Again, that was superb, and I have 1,000 questions to ask you because one thing you said, which strikes me very, very strongly, is the fact that your prioritization metrics needs to be in tandem with the context within which you're working. So you can't just go pick something from a textbook. It could not always work for you because our contexts are always different. The circumstances governing your product are always different. The kind of stakeholders you're working with and what value means to you, your team, the business, the stakeholders are always different. But one thing you said is measuring value against complexity. Again, it's a bit ambiguous what value is, and you need to drill down and have that have that detailed understanding and unpiecing of what value means to the various moving parts. But when you talk about complexity, if you wouldn't mind, I want to understand when you say complexity, are you referring to the technical feasibility complexity or to the many moving parts that affect the development and delivering of that particular requirements as a complexity, or what exactly do you refer to? Because a lot could be misconstrued for complexity.
Yeah, again, so that would be subjective to the nature of how the development is done. For example, if you have systems that have well-defined architectures,
Mm,
uh, that have that have been built on agile framework approaches that are more robust, will define how complex things are versus things that are legacy systems, systems that are legacy and are now to be improved to cater to the immediate necessities and the new necessities and needs of the organization. That defines what complexity is. However, from my point of view, when
yeah.
I talk about complexity, it involves a couple of factors such as the cost of effort involved.
Mm,
When I talk about that, it talks about the time
mm-hmm.
to develop something. It talks about how many resources required to develop something.
FTEs.
Uh, yeah. It talks about whether we have architectural robustness to cater for that new requirement, or we
Yeah.
need to build that from scratch. So these are the various complexities that I'm trying to refer to uh,
Okay.
in in tandem with the complexities involved for dependencies, for that matter, dependencies with external systems. When I say five systems which I mentioned previously, there are things that exist in one system which may not exist in the other, but you need
Yeah.
to pass on the information from one place to the other. Whether you have a data warehouse or a database that is common to both of these systems, to put in
Mm,
layman language, whether those information exist. So all of these kind of factors contribute to defining how complex a particular requirement could evolve to be, and which is not seen in the very beginning when a particular requirement is being asked for or put forth by the stakeholder.
mm,
So, all of this can be clarified as part of your refinement that you do with your development team,
mm-hmm.
that you do with your stakeholders, involve them in the refinement session, give them an idea. Now, why this is also necessary, it's not as simple that you have a requirement and you just identify the complexity and you say that this is high complex, high value, but you put it down in precedence versus to something that is low complex, high value. That simply can't happen. You have to go back to it and see whether that can be split further,
Yeah.
whether that can be broken down further. And if you break it down, what is the most viable or minimum viable thing
Yeah.
that you can do? Something that you know as minimum viable product
Mm,
that you can do. There are things like you need to bear in mind about when you talk about development. You need to understand what is a minimum viable. It does not need to be at a product level. It can be at a requirement level as well.
yeah.
You have an once you define a minimum viable solution, well, you can always have a minimum viable within it, which in
Mm-hmm.
many cases you have, and you need to keep that in back of your mind, and you need to work on it continuously. You need to understand whether you're when you're passing this requirement down to your development team or working with your business analyst for the scrum team or the development team, Uh, are they taking into consideration things like invest approach, which talks about whether it is independent, whether it is negotiable, whether it is value driven, whether the stories are value driven, whether they are testable independently, whether they are deliverable independently, etc. So you need to keep all this in mind, and all of this then contributes to your prioritization, which then helps you understand what sits top in the priority list and what sits at the bottom.
Hmm.
If I've answered your question.
Yeah, I mean, that's superb. You've touched on what that means, because the complexity can just be considered as, oh, this is very difficult, or we can't support it at this point in time. And people often forget that when you begin to consider the granular level of that requirement and start looking at what is the minimum viable outcome, as I would coin it, you may just get sunk in the details, or just looking at the difficulty of giving the whole outcome or the entire value. But what you said that I totally agree with is try to unpiece this. I mean, there's always this saying that how do you eat an elephant? It's bit by bit, right? So you want to break that complex requirements down, looking through the invest strategy and see, are you actually looking at something that can you unpiece it such that it can be independently worked on, yet providing as much value, right?
Right.
But without having all of the weightlifting that comes with attacking the whole story or attacking the whole requirement. So, sort of limiting the scope, yielding value at the end of the day, but reducing your complexity drastically so that you can move forward. And I think that makes a lot of sense, because people just chuck things that are very complex at one look, just chuck it down the backlog and look at the ones that are less complex and maybe has a high value or maybe the same level of value, and
Yeah.
just keep doing that. But the risk is that you keep moving something that is very important down the backlog because you have not had the bandwidth to consider other alternatives to why it is complex.
Yeah.
And I think that that makes a lot of sense. And so, do you have one backlog in the interest of you working on this, say five software product that enhances maybe like 10 systems? Do you have one backlog for all of those, or you have separate backlogs,
Um,
and why?
from yeah, no, no, yeah. So I'll tell you my personal, again. This is my personal opinion.
Yeah.
Um, you may have uh, when you talk about backlog, you know that backlog in itself can be identified as sprint backlog, team backlog, product backlog,
Product backlog. Yeah.
right? So backlog in itself can be segregated further, and then they become individual backlogs for individual purposes. So backlog for a particular sprint
Mm,
that the team is working on in Agile, for example, a backlog for the whole product that defines future sprints,
mm,
requirements, etc. Personally, I believe in having one single backlog which gives you the visibility of these various requirements, because there are two reasons to it. One, you can identify dependencies in requirements. You can identify requirements that may be redundant. You can identify requirements that can be catered by existing systems rather than building new systems.
yeah.
Uh, and the second reason is about visibility. The more visible your backlog is to your stakeholders, including your development team, including yourself, including your product management group, including your requesters group,
Hmm.
stakeholders need to have visibility of your backlog so that things that you portray on a backlog are clear in terms of vision of what your backlog is about, in terms of objectives of what your business strategy and requirements are, is very important in driving a good agile delivery outcome.
Mm, right. And I mean, that makes sense, because what I do personally is I have, so I handle a couple of products, right? Software products. And for each of those, you've got a backlog. But I still have another backlog where I'm able to see everything at a go. That way I'm able to consolidate things that are closely affiliated. So there's this grand product that has two product lines, and each of those product lines have their backlog, but the product in itself has one backlog. So, in the interest of managing within the context of one product line, I have a separate backlog whereon we work together with the stakeholders. But for me to be able to manage the interdependencies between the whole product as a whole, having those two product lines, I had to create another backlog where I sort of consolidated things. And that way, it also helps you with resource allocation and planning, especially if you're working with one team for both products or two teams. That way, you could easily know what to move forward, what to rearrange, how to prioritize. Otherwise, you lose out some very key aspects for your prioritization outlook, and which wouldn't be very good because, again, like you said earlier, you don't want to mess up the relationship with your stakeholders. You want to give them visibility, you want to carry them along, and all of that. But one question I have for you now is talking about roadmaps. Now you have a huge portfolio. I don't know whether you see it that way anyway. You have a portfolio of multiple products. How do you manage the product roadmap? Do you have one massive product roadmap with all of the products in there, or software products in there, or do you have a more succinct product roadmap for each of them, or both? How do you go about it?
So that's also one of the reason I was trying to tell you why I prefer a single backlog. It may not be a single product backlog, but a backlog that
Mm,
gives you visibility of different products and at a high level. So if you're so for example, as you mentioned, there are multiple teams that you work with, and each team could have their own or their team
yeah.
backlog. But at the end of the day, all of that needs to flow up to the product owners and to the product managers, who can then define what needs to be pulled up as priority, what is important from a strategic point of view. And that's where also you can define milestones for each of these products or requirements or projects, depending on what kind of organization you're in. Again, I'm talking from my context,
Yeah.
per se, and my past experience. So the product roadmap will definitely, again, this single backlog that I'm talking about drives the product roadmap. And in the product roadmap, one key thing that I always tend to do or maintain is milestones for
Mm,
each of the product and projects that require delivery through these various products that I work with. Once you define the milestones, you are able to get a clearer picture of where are the milestones overlapping, and these milestones could be external factors impacting your product delivery. These milestones could be internal factors. For example, in a research institute like mine, there could be new sequencing machines coming into play that need to support new software, for that matter, new sequencing machines having their own softwares which may not be compatible with the existing systems. So
yeah.
these are the various things that can impact the definition of a milestone for your project or your product. Once you have it all in place, uh, I generally have been following a product roadmap so far, which is a single roadmap on a plan on a page kind of an approach, where I put all of this on a single page on a very high level, on a bird's eye view. Obviously, you can drill it down, you can go further down into it, you can create Gantt charts as much
Mm,
as you want. You can create as many Gantt charts which are more detailed or drill down views of these various projects. But when I work with the various stakeholders that I work with, uh, who are the requesters, who are business heads for that matter, I try
yeah.
to put it all on a single page and give
Mm,
them visibility and come up with questions on that single page itself, where they foresee the direction of the systems and the solutions that we are proposing.
wow. Yeah, because I think there's always that need for a high level,
Yeah.
um, like an overarching page that says this is where we are, this is what we have planned. Um, so what do you want to do? basically it can help facilitate some conversations that need to be had in order to make that whole experience very seamless. So I totally agree with that. But my question now is, what kind of tools, because you've mentioned things around your backlog, your prioritization, your roadmaps and stuff like that, what kind of tools do you use to sort of house all of these artifacts that help your product ownership?
Yeah. So, well, there are many tools that have come out in the market. Uh,
Absolutely. And it
the
can be
most
difficult
recent,
to choose.
yeah, it can be definitely difficult. Most recent that I'm trying my hands on at this point. Uh, Again, this not. I'm trying to be as general as this can be, rather than making it more like a sponsorship thing. But
Mhm.
but
True.
something new that that's been talked of a lot is around Monday.com, which helps deliver, which seems to be more intuitive from a product management, project management,
Yeah.
etc. point of view. Uh, However, in the past, I have worked with a couple of, I would say, traditional as well as more elaborate systems which allow you to perform your product management roles better. For example, I worked with Microsoft Team Foundation Server, uh, and I've worked with Jira, Confluence Jira. I've also worked with things as simple, which allows you to just keep track of cards, such as Trello, to manage cards. However, always things that come in handy, things like creating a roadmap,
Mm.
which many of these systems provide inbuilt extensions and tools to do all of that. But all of this obviously can be also achieved through a clearer understanding of what you need to showcase rather than using the tool. So, what I'm trying to say to your question, apart from using these tools, you may always end up using. So, there's no emphasis on what tool you use. That's what I'm trying to say. You
Mm-hmm.
can end up using presentation, Microsoft PPTs, and Google Drives. You can end up using Excel sheets on Google Drive and Microsoft Office. But what is more important is a clearer visibility and understanding of what you need to showcase to your target audience. This is more important. However, the various tools that I've mentioned definitely help give you an understanding where things are, how they're progressing, and also at the same time, as a product owner, as a business analyst, or anyone in the product management realm needs to understand is the mind maps, the story maps, etc. All of these various tools help you with that. So tools are there to help you visualize things better,
Mm.
but to be able to understand it, you need to understand things before you be able to visualize it better.
Mm. Amazing. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense too. You need to be able to know exactly what information you're passing across and then determine what kind of tools you would use to convey the information. And in my
Also, your target audience.
yes, the kind of people you're dealing with. Um, yeah, but why the main reason why I even asked that question is for, I think, two main reasons anyway. One is that it can be hard for people who are trying to get into this space to sort of determine what tool would work for them. And I know there's also that disparity between different organizations. You could be very good with um, Microsoft suite, and then you go to an organization that uses the Atlassian suite, right? So you need to be able to move across any board, but presenting the information in the right way. But for someone that is getting started, they're probably looking for, how do I even get started? What kind of tools would help me start putting a roadmap together? What kind of tools would help me start putting my backlog together and stuff like that? And I think there are 1,000 tools out there. I've used AHA before, AHA roadmaps and all of that. I've heard of Monday.com. I've not really checked it out. I know there's Asana, there's Jira, and all of these things more or less perform the same functionality. You just need to be able to wire them together and present the information, like Sujit says, to the right stakeholders in the right format. You could use MyRobot to sort of visualize some of these roadmaps and stuff like that. And more interestingly for me, I use Jira Advanced Plan, which helps me to sort of go across, because again, I work with multiple software teams, to be able to compress everything, or not even compress, consolidate. Yes, that's the right word. Consolidate every activity happening across the multiple team on one single view, and then you could split it by teams, look at your dependencies management and stuff like that. It really helps you to have that bird eye view over your multiple projects or projects that are happening. So there are tons of tools out there, but you could hear from Sujit that he uses the Jira, Confluence, Trello. Trello is very simplistic and very visual as well. So you just explore your options and start somewhere and make that your tool for a beginning. But with the mindset that tools are not the focus, the information you're representing and how you want to communicate it to what stakeholder should be the focus, because you could get into a new organization and they are not using any of the things you're conversant with. You should be flexible enough to adapt. So I'm trying to bring it to a close with one more. Well, I have two more questions, but let's see how we go. The next question would be, what sort of challenges do you face in terms of product ownership in this kind of setting? Now, I know you probably did not have any genomics background or biological science background, because you mentioned studying computer science. What kind of challenges and how did you navigate them? And this is specifically for people who are product owners, product managers that are looking to get into some similar space as you are, or people who are generally product people, maybe business analysts, and want to get into this similar space. What kind of challenges should they be sort of conscious of, and what kind of tips can you give that helped you navigate your way, or help you in navigating your way at the moment around those challenges?
Right. So yes. So this has definitely been a new domain per se, the scientific genomic research world, and for most of my career, something that I've learned in my role as a business analyst, and also now as a product manager, management aspect, is that you need to focus more on developing your skills on tackling the product management or business analysis world problems.
Mm,
Uh, if you are not into a single domain, or you want to change your domain, or you want to move to a different domain, a business domain, when I say domain,
mm,
you need to focus more on your key skills as what you bring to the table as a business analyst and as a product management uh, individual.
yeah.
uh, for so once you do that, everything else around it, such as the domain that you're in, needs to be done over a period of time. It is not something that you land up all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
In many cases, it will be all of a sudden because you get an opportunity. For example, you get a better paying job for that matter, or a job that requires certain key skills. In my case, it was the latter one, which is the job that provided more focus on the key skills of a product manager. So if you want to focus on these aspects of your career, you need to be vigilant about what you want in with respect to the domain that you want to move to. For example, if you want to move into scientific genomic research, you keep reading about it a bit by bit. Most of it is on the job training that you will get. But also, when you're on the job, the challenge that you will face, which I face, is you will not always understand the context.
Mm,
And in our work line, I would say context is the key to most of the things.
yeah.
So when you're clear with the context, you will be able to clearly see things. I would say you will be able to clearly see, you will clear the fog, and you will
Mm,
be able to see it more better. Uh, and that again will continue on how you read on things that relate to your area of work or the domain of work. But
Yes.
to your viewers, I would request, I would that not a request, but this is my personal opinion that you need to focus on your key skills as what you bring to a table as a business
Mm,
analyst
mm.
and as a product manager.
Wow. Wow. If I may just add something to that, key skills, you need to ensure that those skills are transferable to whatever domain you're going into, because again, this is something that would always happen. It could be the scientific environment today, and in the next decade you are in the financials, and you've probably not been in the financial environment before. If you do not have those transferable skills and recognizing the context, then it becomes even difficult to understand the requirements, to understand what to prioritize, because then you do not have a basis for comparing value against value, right? And I think that makes so much sense. So yes, I would really love to draw the curtain here. If you've got any recommendation or advice that you want to give anybody looking to get started in product management, product ownership, what would that be in a nutshell?
Well, I would say, as I said before, you
Yeah.
need to start reading about it
Mm,
to build your skill set. You may not be able to, you know, get certification due to financial or time constraints for that matter, but
mm,
you can always pick up a book and start reading about what it entails, what are the various responsibilities entails, and you can start executing those in your day-to-day current job that you're doing. So you can start coming up with suggestions that you can take up to your, for example, a line manager. You can take it up to the broader group. You can make suggestions that that are in line with your aspirations
mm,
and things that you have read about, you have learned about from what you're trying to pursue. So I would say start, most preferably identify a certification that you think is more beneficial and start preparing for it um, from a to go into business analysis or product management. I can provide some links to the certifications that I did, some books that I have read about. Uh, so so
that's
there are, most of these resources are free on the internet. You just need to know where to go, and I can
mm,
definitely share it with your audience, Joshua,
that would be
and
helpful.
via your help, and you can share it across with your audience. And the only suggestion I would say is to read about what you want to be, what that entails, and try and executing those responsibilities in your current job. And
Mm,
so far in my career, I have not come across anyone who would tell me not to do something because that's not part of my job, because that's not
mm,
how good businesses grow, right?
true.
So majority of the businesses want to grow, want to expand in this fast moving world. And I would
Mm,
say that you do the same for yourself and make suggestion, make contribution in your existing place where you are.
mm. I think it's even encouraging. It's encouraged in most organizations to go a little bit further than doing just your job. So when you start bringing ideas, you'll be considered as innovative, which is a plus to you. And of course, known or unknown to them, you're also building capacity for your next career aspiration. So it is a win-win on every side. But one thing you should remember, if I may add to what Sujit has said, is you will probably not get it the first time. There are suggestions you make that would fail or will be dead on arrival, and that is fine. That's how you learn, that's how you grow, that's how you transit into a new um, line of things you've not done before. So it is fine to bear that in mind, that failure is part of the learning process as well. And I think that would be very helpful. So Sujit is going to provide some of those links, and I'll put them in the
Yeah,
description of wherever you're listening or watching this from. Do well to make maximum use of those resources, and you probably have more questions. You could put them in the comment section, in the chat box, or whatever you are using to listen or watch this podcast. Or I assume Sujit will be happy for you to also reach out to him on
absolutely.
LinkedIn. That's
Yes.
fantastic.
Yeah.
So please do reach out to Sujit if you have more questions, or you have something that particularly strikes your interest and you'd like to learn from him. Please reach out to him on LinkedIn. Um, at this point, I'm just gonna call it a wrap and really and truly appreciate Sujit for making out time. I know in the midst of everything that you are handling, multitasking, you have made out time to sort of share from your experience, from your perspective, to help people about what product ownership is in the scientific context. And I'm pretty sure we delved more into the product ownership in a general context to help if you're a product manager or product owner somewhere else, or even a business analyst. You definitely have picked up some nuggets from Sujit's wealth of experience, and I want to really thank you for being here, for sharing all of those things that you shared. Thank you very much.
It was a
Um,
pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And to our listeners and those our viewers who are watching from YouTube or wherever it is you're watching, I want to thank you for being here, listening, watching, and following through even till the end. Please do not forget to share this with people you think would find it helpful. Like and subscribe to this channel so that you can get more of our content as they are released, hot from the oven. And until the next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep leading. Bye, everyone.